wish to do?
Food engineering.
Food engineering.
Yeah.
That's like, is it? Have you already thought of something? Like, is there someone to guide you, or is you are just finding this field on your own? You're venturing on your own.
My dad helped me
That's great.
think of,
That's great.
yeah.
Is your dad also associated with food engineering industry as well?
He's actually in the trading business of food, like all the
Ah,
bakery items. Yeah,
I
so
see. I see. And so, just because it's a very interesting thing, and also in my classes, though I prepare you for NEET and medical entrances and all other sorts of entrances which involves biology, class 11, 12 biology. But keeping in mind alternate career options is also a good idea, because at times you would also like to explore and see where you
yeah.
fit the best. That should also be the purpose of a class, right? Yeah. So just out of curiosity, I wanted to ask you, so are you looking forward to some kind of a biotech nutrition based engineering in food sector, or building apparatus or stuffs, bioreactors, etc., for the
Haven't,
food sector?
uh, haven't really thought about that yet. I'm still
Mhm.
exploring the other.
Ah, so biotechnology, basically food industry engineering also comes under the whole umbrella of a broader umbrella of biotechnology or biotech engineering. So basically there are two things you can engineer, and I'll teach you that, because biotechnology is one of the chapters, right? One of
Yes.
the units. So there are two things that goes: either you engineer the organic matter, which is like the DNA, the plant, the tissue, the material. In your case, if you go into food industry, there are people trying to develop strains of bacteria, fungi, including yeast and crops, etc., to make it more nutritional, and to fruits to have more nutritional value. That is one kind of engineering. That's biological engineering. The other is they are building more sophisticated apparatus for post processing of the food, for packaging of the food, for increasing the shelf life of the food, etc. And both involves heavy computational knowledge. So computers with biology is a good thing in future. So you should continue learning computer and learning biology together. Unfortunately for me, I started very late, because when I was in school, computer science with biology was not that. It was about to get popular. People were taking it, and though I wanted economics with biology, but I could not get it. But I learned computer afterwards. Learned coding, writing, programming. Still learning that. So it's amazing. DNA and computer is the next stage in biology. So good luck. Okay, Aisha. So
Thank
um,
you, sir.
yeah. And Rabia, I think here Rabia wants to go and become. Rabia, did you say what are your plans for career to Aisha? You want to become a,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, I actually am confused whether I want to become a psychiatrist or a cardiologist. I'm looking more forward to a cardiologist.
So Aisha, do you see it's the classic confusion between the mind and the heart?
Yes.
She is not able to understand whether to go to treat people's mind and or to go to treat people's hearts. What's
Right.
yes, Rabia. Both are amazing fields to go into. Though let me tell you one thing: if you are looking forward to go into psychiatry, you should start paying more attention to the neurological aspect, the brain, cognition, nervous system, etc., because mind is nothing but an extension and a manifestation of brain only. On the other hand, if you're interested in cardiology, that involves or that also gives you an opportunity to become a cardiologic surgeon. So you should focus more on physiology and anatomy per se. So start venturing into all these subjects, because you have 1 year, and whatever you want to become is the second step. First step is to study well in 12th, get your 11th and 12th concepts really strong, and give the entrance, right? For both of you, I assume. Okay. Anyway, so just quickly, I would like to orient Aisha. So Aisha, we started with the reproductive unit. the first unit. We went with the fundamentals, which is, so you have joined a little late in this batch, and you have missed quite some portion, some chunk in the reproductive unit, which you don't have to worry about, because we will organize extra time or extra teaching for you, okay, with me, probably starting from the next class half an hour before the class as an extension, so that I can cover up for you before others join. Okay, so this is how it will work. And second thing is, currently we are doing human reproduction, and today most probably we'll wind up the chapter of human reproduction. So this chapter also is mostly gone, but don't think that like it's gone. We will do it again with you. Okay, is that clear, Aisha?
Yes.
So I thought of that today you start with where we are starting, and you finish this chapter. We will keep going back and forth. We always keep doing that. So there are two things in my class which are very, very important to keep in mind, and Rabia will, if she wants, she can add to it. One thing is we discuss very extensively. So one thing is discussion based. This class is discussion based. Do not take it as a monologue. So you're not here with a pen and a paper to note down everything I'm reiterating. I don't want to be a speaking version of your textbook. So discussion is one thing, most important. And I like discussion because, of course, I come from a research background. So that's what my bread and butter is. Second thing is, anything that I say, and if you don't understand, or even if the book says and you don't understand, you have the right to question. You have the right to question, ask for proofs. Why do we think this is true? And why not the alternate thing, if it is in your head, is true? Okay. So cross questioning is completely allowed. And until the point you are convinced with whatever I'm saying in science is right, you should not buy it. Okay. Not even just for writing in the entrance. And sometimes I will tell you that this is the true picture, but for your entrances, you have to focus and understand only this much. So just keep it in mind. Okay. And third thing is the most, so I think you also like biology, like Rabia and me, right? Because you have taken biology, so you must be liking the subject. Yes?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, but one thing you will also agree with me is that it's a very boring subject sometimes when it comes to the terms, right? Lots of scientific terminologies just to memorize, which make no sense in plain English, correct?
Yes.
We all have gone through it. I have gone through it. You are going through it, both of you. So how we tackle that is we focus on terms, scientific biological terminologies, and Rabia is maintaining a dictionary of her own, a mini dictionary. You can maintain it at the end of your notebook or in the beginning of your notebook, where we write the scientific term, the biological term, and its meaning. Because in biology, these terms will have their conserved meanings wherever they come. Okay, so it makes you easier. It becomes easier for you by the end of the year to go back when you are revising and to understand definitions and concepts, if you are doing that throughout the year. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so quickly with this, let's come back to business. Okay, Rabia, so I think this is where, okay, Iram has also joined in. Let me take her in, just one. So you have another batchmate, Iram. So Iram is here. Good evening, Iram. Am I audible and visible to you?
Good evening, sir. Yeah,
yes. Yeah. Okay. So you have a new batchmate, Aisha. If you would like to just quickly introduce yourself before we begin. You there, Iram?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
What should I do?
Yeah, sorry, I was saying that if you would like to quickly introduce yourself to Aisha before we begin.
Yes, sir, sure.
Yeah.
Hi, Aisha. My name is Ira. I'm from Maharashtra. I stay here in Doha, Qatar, and I study in MS Indian School.
Hi, I'm Aisha, and I study in Saudi Arabia.
Okay, very well. So in the last class, we discussed mammary glands, and I think Rabia, would you like to give a quick quick recap of the last class in 5 minutes, just quickly what we covered and what you understood overall. And this is also one thing of my class. So first 5 to 10 minutes, you're going to revise. One of you is going to just give a quick revision of the last class. Okay, it helps by the end of the session. Yes, Rabia, will you be able to do that today?
Yes, so actually I have throat infection, so I won't be able to speak properly.
Okay, so no worries. So I'll take it up today. No worries. Okay, so in the last class, we discussed mammary glands, and as we all know that the word mammals comes from, it's rooted into memory. The word
So,
mammary gland. Yes. Anyone has a question? Yes.
is the spotlight feature on? It's on.
Yes, it is. It is on. You can turn on your cameras and microphone, people. So only I can see you and you can see me. Just to let you know. Yes. So the word mammary glands are associated with the word mammal. All mammals are milk producing organisms. They have mammary glands, and that is one feature that by far has no exception in the taxa. Otherwise, other features of mammals like hair and teeth and jaw might have some exceptions, or even laying egg versus giving birth to babies. So we think that all mammals give birth to babies except for duck-billed platypus, which is a mammal but it still lays egg, and it has a bill like a duck. That's why it's called duck-billed, but basically it's a platypus. But even duck-billed platypus has mammary glands. So mammary gland is a characteristic feature. These are milk producing glands, and we discussed about the human female mammary gland in the last class. It's a fascinating organ in a way that it produces colostrum. Colostrum is the milk. The milk of human is called colostrum. colostrum. Okay, which are produced by these mammary glands. Now mammary glands have the outermost layer is areola, and the most important feature is that it has fat tissues for protection, and beneath the fat tissues are these mammary alveolus. These are like structures similar to the alveoli in the lung, but the difference here is that they produce and secrete colostrum, which through mammary duct reaches the ampulla, which is the widermost region of the duct, and then the milk comes out through the lactiferous duct from the mammary glands. And I told you that the word ampulla in this chapter alone has occurred 3 times. So ampulla in biology is associated with duct, a duct which has a widening. Okay, so there is a duct which is of a continuous diameter, and then all of a sudden there is a widened area in the duct. So most of the time, that most widened area in the duct, yes, good to see you, Iram, thank you so much. The most wider area in the duct is called ampulla. So even in sperm duct, there is a region called spermatic duct ampulla. In fallopian tube, there is a region called ampulla. And in fact, ampulla isthmus junction is the site of fertilization in humans. And in mammary gland, also in mammary duct, there is a region called ampulla. Okay, so just keep it in mind. Then we talked about ovarian cycle in the last class, and ovarian cycle, we went into the details of understanding how in the ovary there are 2 regions, the medulla, which is inner region, and always keep in mind in most of our organs, almost all our organs, which are not hollow, like heart is hollow from inside, but organs which are not hollow from inside, they have 2 distinguishing regions. The inner region is called medulla. It is true for ovary. It is also true for your adrenal gland, like adrenal medulla, adrenal cortex. It is also true for other organs. So medulla and a cortex. So the medulla of ovary is mostly responsible for supply of nutrition, oxygen, and then taking away of wastes from the ovary as an organ. So it is innervated by blood vessels, both arteries and veins, and that is the main function of medulla. from medulla also hormones comes into ovary. So remember, so Aisha, even if you don't, has this chapter been done in your school, Aisha? Sorry, I forgot to ask. What is the status of your biology syllabus in your school? Where are you?
We have done chapter 2, 3, and 4.
Okay, great. So you have some sense of what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect, great. But still ask me questions if you have any doubt, okay? That will make the work easier. Perfect. So you must be knowing that from the pituitary, the hormonal signaling that control reproductive system in both males and females. So hypothalamus secretes gonadotropin releasing hormone that goes to pituitary. Pituitary in response to it secretes gonadotropins, which are FSH and LH. Both of them go to ovary and testes in male and in females and males respectively, and show their effect there. So in medulla, ovarian medulla, FSH and LH comes in through this blood vessels, right? Because it's a hormone which is circulating in the blood. And then in the cortical region, this is the region where follicles develop. So primary follicle becomes secondary, secondary becomes tertiary, which is also called Graafian follicle. The primary and secondary follicle contain primary oocyte inside it. So follicle is like the wrapper of the candy, chocolate candy, and chocolate inside is the oocyte. So, and the tertiary follicle contains secondary oocyte, and follicles produce estrogen. Okay, and the feature of Graafian follicle, which is the final follicle, how we know that it's matured follicle now, if you can see the fluid filled cavity, which is antrum. So this development of this antrum, a fluid filled cavity, makes it a tertiary follicle. And from this tertiary follicle, the secondary oocyte is released. Okay, and after it is released, what is left behind of the Graafian follicle starts to die and degenerate, and it's called corpus luteum. Okay, now corpus luteum is a source of progesterone. So it secretes progesterone. Follicles were estrogen source, and corpus luteum post ovulation is a progesterone source. Then this corpus luteum starts degenerating even further, and it is called regressing corpus luteum, or it's called corpus albicans. Another name is corpus luteum and corpus albicans, which is regressing corpus luteum, and then finally it degenerates and die. Okay, and then we came then we discussed after the ovary, that secondary oocyte that got released out, it is kind of catched by this infundibulum, which are like finger like projection structures, and then it enters inside the fallopian tube. And this line around this B point here is the region of fertilization. It is called ampulla isthmus junction. It is the widest part of the oviduct, and this is where sperm come and fertilize. And the secondary oocyte completes meiosis 2 and becomes ovum, and second polar body is released here, right? And then it goes all the way. So this what you see A here is your secondary oocyte. B is they are showing fertilization, where one sperm enters and it becomes a zygote. This is a 2-celled stage embryo. So post 1-cell stage, we don't call it zygote anymore. Zygote is only a single cell structure. The moment it divides and becomes 2, which takes around 24 hours in a human. So after 24 hours, a zygote becomes a 2-cell stage embryo. So 2-cell, then 4-cell, then 8-cell, because the division is mitotic. So 2, 4, 8, a 8-cell stage is called a morula. 8 to 16, okay, is called morula. And then when it becomes around 32-cell stage, 16 to 32 transition, that point onwards, it is called blastula. So NEET had this one question. How many of you saw the NEET paper? Like, I think yesterday was the NEET exam, right? Did you see the question paper? It's out there. You should see it's at least you should be able to solve 50% of it, because you have already done 11th, right? In your right spirits. So keep looking. So I want all of you to go back, those who are planning to give NEET entrance, medical entrance, look, take the paper and see how much do you understand from the paper, or just on the basis of 11th. That's it. So they asked a question not in this paper, but in previous years, it came that which is the right sequence. So the right sequence is zygote. You would like to just write it, zygote, then embryo, which becomes morula. Morula is also an embryo, but a 2-cell stage embryo was the option. Then it becomes blastula, and blastula becomes blastocyst. Okay, it's just blastula only, but arranged blastula. This is blastocyst. In a blastocyst, the arrangement is very clear. You have a central cavity called blastocele. The word cele, C-O-E-L, in biology stands for cavity. In your class 11th, you have studied coelome, right? Remember coelome, Aisha, Rabia, and Iram? Pseudocoelome, and like, so coelomic organisms are those who have cavity. So this is not the body cavity, but this is the cavity of the blastocyst. So it's called blastocele. Okay, and then there is a layer of cells arranged around the boundary because it's like a ball. So all the boundary cells are called trophoblast. Okay, and inside the boundary cells, there's a cavity and a bunch of cells sitting at one corner called inner mass cells. These are the most important cells in a blastocele, in a human embryo or in any embryo. So blastocele, any vertebrate embryo, which contains these inner mass cells, these inner mass cells go on to form the organism. Okay, this trophoblast makes placenta. So these are some things you should know before we go forward and I teach you about genetics and all, or about parturition and other things. So idea is that trophoblast will attach to the embed to the endometrium, will form placenta and a protective covering. Inside it, there is a cavity which will be filled with a fluid later on, which is called amniotic fluid. If you remember, the baby is inside a fluid inside the mother's womb, right? That's where when pregnant females, when they get, how do they know that it's about time for delivery to happen? One thing is which is called breaking of the water. So they call that their water broke. So the water breaking is this amniotic fluid spilling out and the baby is ready to come out. So that's happened in the seal. Yes, yes, I am.
So this doesn't happen in what do you say?
Cesarean.
Cesarean.
Exactly, and it's a very good point. I was about to come to that. So when you do a cesarean section, C-sec is you just cut the uterus open and take the baby out without the baby going through the birth canal. And I think we discussed in previous classes that it's very important actually. For research has shown that babies which are born through normal deliveries tend to have much more robust immune system than those which with C-section, especially in the initial 10 years of their life, because when the baby goes through the vaginal canal, the birth canal, it also it gets exposed to a lot of bacteria and lot of microorganism pool from the mother that helps the baby to activate certain immune systems and things like that. In C-sec, what Iram is pointing towards, I think, is sometime it is possible even in cesarean sections to just lift the whole baby when the baby is still inside that amniotic membrane. And those kind of births are slightly not very rare, but are rare because it's a very it's not very strong membrane, so it bursts easily. But if a baby is taken out of the mother's body, imagine a baby out of a mother's body, but it's still in that cavity, like in an egg, that's called wheel birth. Would like to go and just Google about it and read wheel birth. In this case, what interesting thing is, if a baby is born through wheel birth, even when it is out of the mother's body, it's not born yet. It still behaves like it is, because technically it's not born, right? Birth is when it bursts and the baby comes out, and for the first time, babies cry. All the babies cry after they are born. If a baby doesn't cry, the doctor will make the baby cry, by pinching or slapping, not slapping very hard, but like tapping on the body or in the back or rubbing the back. Why is crying important? You know that? Anyone? Any idea? That's a very interesting fact associated. Yes, you know.
It makes sure that the baby's alive.
It's Rabia. Who's answering? Is it Rabia?
Yes, sir.
Rabia. Yes, it says that the baby is alive. Okay, but the baby can just open eyes, baby can see around, baby can, you know, breathe in, move hands and feet to prove that I'm alive. Why it has to cry and prove that I'm alive? You could have said that it's more probable to prove that I can speak. I have a voice. See, I can cry. But all babies do cry. You know why it happens? So the reason is, scientific reason is, in the mother's womb, the baby was not breathing, right? The baby was just respiring. So respiration and breathing is something different. You know that, right? Respiration, in class 11th, you have studied this. So the difference between respiration and breathing. Aisha, what's the difference between respiration and breathing? Quickly. And you can give wrong answers. No judgments, nothing in the class. We're just discussing.
It's the respiration is taking in of oxygen and releasing carbon dioxide.
Okay. And what's breathing? Now Aisha is thinking, oh wait, breathing is also the same thing, by the way. Isn't it, Aisha? Yes. So how will you just differentiate breathing? Is breathing also the same thing?
No, it's not.
Yes. Then what is breathing? When do you breathe and when do you respire?
I think respiration is when the breaking down of
Yes. Now you're talking
energy
business.
is released.
Yes, right. And what you defined, excuse me, what you defined for respiration earlier is actually breathing. Okay, so breathing is a physical phenomena. Breathing is taking in, and we don't take in oxygen. That's a it's a misconception in society that we just breathe in oxygen. We breathe in everything that's there in air. We have nothing to filter. If we could breathe just oxygen in, life would have been so easier. No one would have been talking about air pollution or something. You know, howsoever polluted the air is, I have filter in my nostrils and I will just take oxygen, forget about everything. But the problem is whatever is in the air goes inside our lungs. It's the lungs, it's the alveoli where the exchange happens, and the exchange only happens of oxygen and CO2 because of a molecule in our blood called hemoglobin. Perfect. And a similar molecule is present in the muscles, which is called myoglobin. Myo means muscle. Okay, so hemoglobin and myoglobin have affinity for oxygen and, you know, CO2. Yes, correct. So breathing is physical phenomena. Respiration is, as Aisha correctly said, it is a physiological cellular phenomena where inside the cell we break down glucose to produce energy using oxygen. Okay, so it's called oxidative breakdown. So these are fundamentals. I will always keep going back and forth to 11th, and, you know, I'll tease you and ask questions. So be ready, bear with it. They say that if you train hard, then you perform harder, you know. So some uneasiness while training is good. Yes. So so in wheel birth, what happens? Baby has yet not breathed. So no breathing yet of now. For the first time, you can keep the baby for some minutes in the wheel. So that will make a difference between its biological birth and actual birth. So biological birth is the baby came out of the mother's body, but actually it's not born. So when you have to write time, no, some certificates write time of birth. So time of birth is when baby, you know, breathes, comes out of the body and breathes for the first time. So when it breathes for the first time, the lungs which have some fluid filled in it from the mother's body, they expand for the first time. Imagine a tissue which is expanding for the first time, and that causes some sense of pain and uneasiness to the baby. Pain receptors get activated. So the baby feels the first feeling of pain, discomfort, extension of its own body and all it knows is to cry. That's the universal basic language of babies, to cry. Whatever happens to them, they're like, ah. So that's how they go. Okay. So that's why they cry. So in wheel birth, there are very, very interesting videos on YouTube where you will see babies born through wheel birth, and they look like they're as if they're in a fish bowl inside. Look very weird from outside, but okay. Anyways, so this is the sequence. Blastocyst has a cavity and an inner mast cell. So you can write inner mast cells makes everything that is present in the human body. So the fetus is developed from inner mast cells, and then this blastocyst gets implanted in the endometrium. Okay, and from there the development of the fetus begins. So after blastocysts comes the fetus. So all these are terms. We use the term fetus post implantation mostly. We do not use the word fetus for a blastocyst. Only after implantation, when it starts developing other structures, limbs start growing in size, and you can see the bump of pregnancy coming up in females, and then the abdomen gets swollen and swollen and swollen. That's the fetus developing inside. Once the fetus is born, post birth, it is called infant. Okay, and then whatever you want to call it, baby, kid, child, and then puberty hits, then we call adolescence, and then adult. Teenager is not a biological term. Is that clear? Zygote, embryo, morula, blastula, blastocyst, implantation, fetus, and infant. Okay, perfect. Now let me start with today with some details of fertilization, event of fertilization. So the overall process is clear to all of you?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, fertilization. Let's define it first. Anyone who would like to define fertilization for me? What does fertilization means?
The fusion of sperm with the egg.
Yes, the fusion of sperm with the egg is fertilization. Perfect. Just to elaborate on it, it is the process. It's the whole process where we often don't talk about the selection process of sperms. Fertilization is a chance event, we call. Even though there are millions of sperms, it is a chance event for many reasons. One, the sperm and ovum has to be present at the same time, right? Even if there's a delay of 2 days or 3 days, by the time sperm reaches the ovum dies, or by the time sperm reaches the ovum is not yet there. It is not yet released. So there has to be a synchronization. Okay. So that is first major factor. Second major factor is the severe selection process. If you think NEET and other entrances are the hardest kind of selection process, believe me, it's nothing as compared to the selection process we all have already gone through partly. Half of our existence has been through a rigorous selection process where millions of counterparts of ours were racing towards an ovum, and somehow we succeeded and the fusion happened. Sometimes, most of the times, all the sperms are killed in the female tract. No viable sperm is present to fertilize the ovum. Okay, and mostly it is because of the acidic and the hostile environment which is present in the female's body. Okay, so for a female body, the sperm is not something like a guest that should be welcomed. For a female body, the sperm is a foreign particle. So the female immune system plus the whole reproductive tract will try to kill. So only the fittest and the fastest, the fittest, the most viable sperm can fertilize the ovum. So fertilization is the process of sperm reaching and fertilizing. Sperm reaching and fertilizing the ovum to produce a diploid zygote. Okay, you can
Sorry,
also
can you
write,
please repeat?
yeah, that's the hardest part for me actually. uh, uh, what did I say? Aaron, would you like to help me?
Fertilization is a process
Yes,
of sperm
the
reaching,
yes, the sperm reaching and
fertilizing the ovum to produce
yes,
a
fertilizing the ovum. In the bracket, you can add by fusing with the female nuclei, or by fusion of male and female nuclei. So there is no perfect definition. Okay, you can also refer to any book's definition, but how I teach, I always give you definition which is easier and makes more sense, and you will not lose marks if you write these, because all technical terms should be there. By fusion of male and female nucleus to produce a diploid zygote inside the female reproductive tract. That part is not important, because all fertilization can also take place outside the female reproductive tract. Okay, there are external fertilization as well, right? But in humans, it is internal fertilization. So if it is external fertilization, which happens in case of fish, frog, and other, mostly the aquatic organisms, where you must have seen most of the times a big frog sitting on ground, and on top of it there is a small frog, right? Have you seen this kind of a structure? When I was a kid, I used to think that the small frog is the baby and the big frog is the mama frog or the papa frog carrying the baby around. That's not true actually. The bigger frog is female and this is the male. Okay, it's smaller than the female. So why it's sitting on top of the female is because they will spawn their gametes in water. So they are in the water, not completely in the water, but slightly submerged. And what happens is, the moment female will release eggs in the water, the male at the same time will start releasing sperm in the same water. So sperm meets the egg inside the water, fertilizes there, and zygote is formed there, and everything develops there. That's called external fertilization. In humans, it is internal fertilizations, okay, in mammals. So you can write internal fertilization is where the male gamete fuses with the female gamete. Internal fertilization is where the male gamete fuses with the female gamete inside the female reproductive tract. Inside the female reproductive tract. And external fertilization is where this fusion takes place outside the body. Mostly it happens in water. Okay, now let's come to this diagram, which I have taken from your NCERT. This diagram is not to scale, let me tell you. Sperms are not this big in front of ovum. If to scale, if this is the ovum, and if you want to know how big sperm will be to scale, it will be this big. You see a dot here? Even that might not be to scale. Can I make a smaller dot? It will be, this is the smallest dot I can make. So it will be this, or even something of this scale. So sperms are very, very tiny as compared to the ovum. And remember, ovum is the largest cell that exists in the life cycle of any organism. Okay, so in a human, and this is again another neat question, which is the largest cell to exist in a human life cycle? Sperm, ovum, RBCs. RBCs are very big, or a squamous epithelial cell. So the right answer is ovum. There can never be a cell bigger than ovum in your entire life cycle. And you can imagine why, because, see here, can anyone tell me what is one thing that you are observing in this diagram with respect to the division of cells? Anyone can notice something? Okay, let me give you a hint. B, C, D, E, F, and even G. From B to G, which means from ovum getting fertilized to blastocyst. Let me declutter it a bit. Now it's clear. Do you see the overall size is same only, right? They've made the similar circles, and this is not a misrepresentation. It is like that. So the one cells, the zygote and the 2 cell stage embryo are of equal size, but the cells inside, so this one cell is big and it divides to form 2 cells which are almost half of this cell, right? Then another division, and each cell is 1/4 of the zygote of the ovum, then 1/8, 1/16, and so on. So till blastocyst is formed, till 500 to 1000 cells, division is just smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. Every cell in my body is smaller than an ovum, and every cell in a female body is also smaller than an ovum, because in the beginning, when from zygote to blastocyst, there is this division is called cleavage division. Oh, forgot to, this is very important. Write this down. The early divisions, write down the early divisions that take place during embryogenesis. The word embryogenesis, embryo means embryo, genesis means synthesis or formation, simple. So the early divisions during embryogenesis is called cleavage divisions. It's called cleavage divisions. The word cleavage comes from cleave. Cleave means a bigger chunk and you have to cut it into 2 smaller chunks. That's called cleaving. Okay. So this division is called cleavage division, and it is a reducing division where the cell size reduces after every division. Okay, but the overall size of that whole structure remains same. Okay, that's why the size almost did not change. So this blastocyst is almost as big as the ovum which was there in the fallopian tube. That's why even till implantation, the female will feel nothing. Okay, nothing, like you cannot see any visible signs, any phenotype of pregnancy. The only thing will be the next menstrual cycle will be missed. So the female will not have menstrual cycle on time. But that can also happen due to stress or other physiological things. So it's not like every time a female misses a periodic menstrual cycle, she's pregnant. No, it could also be because of stress. But it's very important for the female to then get checked if they are planning. If they are doing family planning, it's very important to get checked, because there might be implantation that has happened and you will not get to know of anything because it's a very small structure, because this is reduction division happening. That's called cleavage divisions. Is it clear? Cleavage clear, everyone? Perfect. So yes, so the sperms or any male gamete in animal kingdom is called microgamete. Not just in animal kingdom, even in plants. Remember microsporangia, macrosporangia, plant physiology, class 11th. So the macrosporangium is the female gametophyte, right? And then micro is the male gametophyte, right? So the word micro is associated with male gametes, and ovum is the macro gamete. It's huge in terms of as compared to male, but just for representation purpose, they are making this sperm very, very. I think some male was making this diagram. He could not just understand, could not satisfy the ego. Anyways, let's come back. So the ovum, as you can see, is heavily guarded by layers of cell, and that's where the final stage examination, final stage, the interview clearing stage of this sperm is, where it has to go through all these layers. And this pink, what you see here, is the perivitelline space, and beneath the pink here is the membrane of the ovum. So the first outermost layer is called corona radiata. Here it's written corona radiata. Corona is a very, very unfortunate term now, but you know what corona also means same thing in biology. What does corona means? You know, where does the word corona comes from? Corona. Anyone has any idea where does the word corona comes from? Why do we call coronavirus as coronavirus? We will also discuss something of your interest in education, which is not in textbook sometimes. Aisha, you know about coronavirus?
Yeah, but I don't know the meaning.
Okay, it's okay. So can you tell me, how do coronavirus look like? Doesn't it look like what we used to draw sun as when we was kid? And this is very amazing a thing. Every kid, regardless of which part of the world that kid is attending kindergarten, but I don't know why we make sun like this only. You know, this is we make sun. I'm sure you also have made sun, unless and until you are very great artists. This is sun, right? You know, this actually is how a coronavirus looks like. If you just put some proteins here, which are called spike proteins, this is how the virus looks like. So the surface of the virus resembles the surface of the sun, which spikes out rays. And this spiking appearance of any sphere is called corona. Things that spike out or emerge out is known as corona. So corona is the term used for the surface of the sun also in cosmology. Okay. And here also you can see that there are things that are coming out from this membrane and like protective. So they are called corona radiata. Radiata means they are radiating outside. Adaptive radiation from class 11th, right? Or radiation in general. What does radiation means? Which radiates out and goes to affect the broader area. So corona radiata is the outermost layer of the ovum, followed by zona pellucida, this green part. This is second. So remember this sequence also. This is important. This is another neat question. Corona radiata, sorry, this has to be 1. Oh, I was writing both as 2. Corona radiata, zona pellucida, then the perivitelline space, which is the third. It is a fluid-filled space between the membrane of the ovum and the zona pellucida. There is some empty space. This empty space is big enough for sperm head to go through and the neck and the tail to get stuck. Okay. And then comes the ovum membrane, oocyte membrane. So fourth is oocyte membrane. This is not marked, I'll mark it. Oocyte membrane, cell membrane. Okay. Inside there is a nucleus, which is a haploid nucleus of the female. Sperm brings with it the male nucleus and the fusion takes place. Aisha defined in very specific terms, she defined fertilization saying it is the fusion of male and female gametes, right, Aisha?
Yes.
Basically, you are defining syngamy. So there is a term called syngamy. Syngamy. So as I told you, fertilization is the whole process, right? Sperm moving around, finding the ovum, drilling through the corona radiata. And how does sperm goes through all these layers? Corona radiata, then zona pellucida, then perivitelline space, and also drilling a hole in the membrane and getting inside. How does it do all that? Because of the head of the sperm contains a structure called acrosome, right? We studied about this. If I go up to the structure of sperm, yes, let's come here. Can you see this red structure, acrosome? It's majorly for you, Aisha, okay? Because I think Iram and Rabia already know this. So Iram is like already bored, kind of. I can see her. So Aisha, you see this structure, acrosome? This is responsible for a sperm to successfully go through corona radiata, zona pellucida, and enter inside the ovum. Okay. It contains hydrolytic enzymes. And one such enzyme, the major enzyme, is called hyaluronidase. It has U here, hyaluronidase. Okay. And this part of a sperm's ability is called viability. If a sperm has a good acrosome, it has good hydrolytic enzymes, it has good potential to penetrate faster and go inside. And that is called viability. Moving faster is called motility. So there are two important aspects of a healthy sperm. A sperm should be motile and a sperm should be viable. Okay, perfect. Now keep down your pen and pencils for some time and just listen to me. Let's discuss this part. There are certain things you will only understand when you discuss. Now the question is, you also in this diagram see 3 sperms here, right? There will be hundreds of sperms surrounding an ovum. It's not like only one. So we again have a misconception that the one we think that the one who reaches the final line is only a single sperm, and that sperm wins the race and goes inside the ovum. It's not true. Sometimes hundreds of sperms can reach the ovum. They all have surrounded the ovum from all the sides, but still only one sperm goes inside and fertilizes the ovum. So what prevents, what happens there? Any idea, Aisha? Most of the time these things are not discussed in schools because it's not written in NCERT per se. So they just follow this paragraph. Remember these definitions. Have you never thought, if hundreds of sperms reach the ovum, how precisely every time in biology every human is born and is diploid? Why don't we have triploid humans, tetraploid humans? Why can't 3 sperms, 2 sperms fertilize the same ovum? Or can they? I'm asking you. Can they do that? Does it happen? Because I think Aisha, I think Iram brought up a point of twins. Today is the class we'll be talking twins, Iram. So I'm just setting up the base for that. Do you think that multiple sperms can fertilize an ovum?
No.
No. Because it makes all the sense. We have never seen a human who is a triploid human. So clear answer will be no, it should not be happening, because otherwise there will be triploid babies born. You are kind of right. It's not like it's impossible. Nothing is impossible in biology. And if that happens, if let's say by some mistake or by some problem, by some mutation, 2 sperm entered and fertilized the ovum, that ovum will not develop beyond, will not become an embryo and will not get implanted, will just die and degrade there. So there is a mechanism to cross check. Even only when it is a diploid zygote, it will continue to go forward and further. But most of the time it does not happen. Aisha is correct. So what prevents it? The ovum. Sorry, yes, Aisha. The sperm.
Sperms are compatible
Sperms are not compatible
to like fertilize with the egg.
All the sperms are compatible, because they're all human sperm. Only a non-human sperm will be incompatible to fertilize a human ovum. And again, if you have doubt, it has been proven. So if you just randomly take any sperm from a human male and put it with a single sperm, which is called IVF, in vitro fertilization, and one step ahead of that is intragamete nucleus transfer, right? So there is a micro injection. You must have seen videos. So ovum is very big. So through a micro injection, you can actually inject a male nucleus, a sperm nucleus inside the ovum. That is called artificial fertilization. So you take any sperm's nucleus, it will fertilize the ovum. So every sperm is compatible. So that point, but good that you thought in that direction. So that's nullified. What is next? What do you think prevents? It is the ovum that has its own defense mechanism against multiple sperm. So what happens is, the moment multiple sperms come and surround the ovum, even multiple sperms can start drilling or start degrading this corona radiata, other layers. But finally, when one sperm touches the membrane, plasma membrane, the innermost layer, and the head kind of gets in, then the membrane of the ovum changes its polarity. There is a chemical change in the membrane which makes it which makes it impermeable to any other sperm to enter. So the first one that touched the membrane and whose head got inside, the head will be kind of cut and only the head will go inside. The neck and the tail will stay outside only, attached to the membrane, but no other head can come in now, because there is a chemical polarity change in the membrane of the ovum upon the first successful sperm invasion, like invading or embedding inside the membrane. Is that clear, Aisha?
Yes.
That's how biology makes sure that only one sperm will fertilize one ovum. And after that, all this is fertilization process. After that, when there is a male nucleus, which I will use blue color here, so this male nucleus plus this female nucleus, which I've shown here in black, when both of them fuse together inside the ovum, that specific step is called syngamy. The word syn means together, or close or together. Gamy means union. Syn means together. So when they together fuse, that step of fertilization is called syngamy. So write down, syngamy is the specific event in the process of fertilization. Syngamy is the specific event in the process of fertilization where male nucleus fuses with the female nucleus. Inside the female gamete cell, inside the female gamete. This step cannot happen outside the female gamete. Okay. So male nucleus plus female nucleus. So the definition that Aisha gave fits better for syngamy. And fertilization is a broader process. Is it clear, Aisha? Rabia, Hiram?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. What you have to remember in this, what can be asked in your exam or entrance, is the series of these layers, which is the outermost layer, which is the innermost. The innermost is the oocyte membrane. And if oocyte membrane is not in the option, then the innermost is the perivitellin space, then zona pellucida, and the outermost is the corona radiata. Okay, perfect. Syngamy is also done. So fertilization has happened, implantation has happened. Both of these things are clear. Now what happens after implantation? So after implantation, the first thing that is important to hold pregnancy is progesterone, right? Remember from previous classes? Let me go back to hormones and show you this graph. So remember, this progesterone level, it rise up in a menstrual cycle post ovulation, right? And because this is the period from day 14 to day 20, or like let's say 22 or 24, so that 10 days, 9 to 10 days is the peak period where uterus is actually expecting pregnancy every month. If it happens, then this progesterone level I have shown here, it remains constant and high throughout the pregnancy for 9 months, right? So we know that progesterone is important to maintain the thickness of endometrium and maintain the endometrium layer itself. In the absence of progesterone, the endometrium layer will just break down and flush out. Now, post implantation, a female system needs more progesterone, right? And by this time implantation is happening, corpus luteum must be coming to degenerate, right? But do you know one very interesting thing? All this happens through signaling. So let me go back here. So let's say this is day 14 where ovulation happened, right? That is the only fixed day. And let's say this is around day 24, not 24, let's say day 20. So around day 18 or 20, the corpus luteum was producing progesterone and was now about to die. But fertilization happened. Now, the moment fertilization will happen and it will become a zygote, and then it will divide in the next 24 hours to become a 2-cell stage embryo, that embryo will start sending signal back to ovary, telling this corpus luteum to hold on for some longer, do not degenerate. So the corpus luteum mostly hangs for around 10 days, hangs in there for around 10 days from day 14 to, from day 14 to 24, 25, then it starts degenerating, okay? But if between that period fertilization happens, then a signal goes back to ovary, which has this corpus luteum, and this corpus luteum extends its life for like some another a week or two. Because why it does that? Because you need constant progesterone, because fertilization happened here, right? By the time they will descend down and get implanted in the endometrium, it needs some more time. So for that more time, corpus luteum will keep producing progesterone. Even embryo starts producing some progesterone, and the moment it gets implanted, the first major job is to form a placenta. So post implantation, the first important thing is to form a placenta, a structural connection between the embryo and the mother's body. Make sense? So in that sense, if you see, we are also behaving the same. We need to root ourselves wherever we are, like endoparasite. You know about endoparasites in the body? Class 11th, name any endoparasite quickly. I also want the scientific name. You must be thinking that yesterday's need was not for us. Why are you making our lives miserable? But the next need might be for you. So simple. Any endoparasite? Parasite which is inside the human body. We all have it.
Tapeworm.
Sorry, come again.
Tapeworm.
Tapeworm, perfect. Tapeworm is there in the intestine, right? It's a long, flat worm, which is so flat that we call it a tapeworm. It's very, very long. Sometimes, covering 1/3 to half of our intestine's length. Tapeworms. Okay. What is the scientific name, Aisha? I also said that I need scientific name. What is tapeworm scientific name?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's called Taenia solium. Just talk to someone about tapeworm, okay? Talk to your father, your mother about tapeworm and use scientific names. I used to torture my parents a lot, telling them a lot of biology, but they were my go-to board kind of thing where I could just bounce back my concepts, and even if they don't care, they're like, oh, that's interesting. What was it again? And I'm like, Taenia solium. Yeah, do it. Parents are very, very supportive. Believe me. Test your parents. as your guinea model system to learn. Yes, Taenia solium. Tapeworm is one good example. Another good example, a little more harmful. Tapeworm is mostly not very harmful. It just stays there, takes some of your nutrition, and just stays happy. Any other endoparasite which can be of some harm also? Liver fluke. Anyone remembers liver fluke? It's in the hepatocytes. So liver fluke is another. Both of them, what they do is they need to go inside the system and root themselves in, especially tapeworm. Tapeworm has sucker-like structures to root itself inside the intestine, membrane of the intestine. In a similar manner, we behave when we are inside our mother's body. So if you think biologically, a developing embryo inside a woman's body is no less than a parasite. So we are parasites to our mothers when we are inside their body and developing, because we show all the same characteristics. We make extensions and get embedded inside their membranes. We start drawing nutrition from their system and start throwing out our waste into their system. We are protected by them, we are given nutrition by them, and we are stealing nutrition from them. Not just stealing, but stealing with some pride. Our mothers very happily provide that nutrition to us because, but and also, like any other parasite, we also have toll effect on their physiology. So when a female is pregnant, the female is more susceptible to a lot of problems, because now the female is more susceptible to become hypoglycemic, because we will take glucose from her system. So she will always feel more hungry. She will feel nauseating. So one of the I will call it symptom of pregnancy is constant nausea, vomiting feeling, not feeling good, feeling hungry. Then you eat and you feel very full. All of a sudden, breathlessness, lethargy, a swelling in other various parts of the body. That's all because a very sophisticated parasite has started living inside the mother's body. Okay, a parasite that will be born and will be loved unconditionally also. Maybe the only parasite mothers love is us. So post implantation, first thing is formation of placenta. Now what is a placenta? Let's draw it. So let's say this is the endometrium layer. What you see in blue is the endometrium layer. Okay, and over time, what's in red is a blastocyst. So when it embeds, it actually gets covered from all the sides. It actually goes inside and gets embedded in the walls of endometrium. So we are covered on all sides by the mother's tissue. Is it clear? Once we are embedded, now let's zoom into this part and look at some clearly. So there is this mother's layer that I should have used blue. Yeah, there is this mother's layer. I should also label. Let's label first. So this is endometrium layer, and what's in red is a blastocyst, which is getting implanted. So I will keep the color coding same. So mother's layer, or let me first make the blastocyst. So these are the cells of trophoblast, okay, the outermost layer. Let's say inside there will be, say this is the blastocyst. Inside there are these inner mast cells, okay, at one corner, and this is the cavity. So this is inner cell, and these are the cells of the trophoblast. Just to take you this, you understand? Trophoblast, inner mass cells. So these cells I'm talking about, which I've drawn in red. They have their own nucleus. Now what happens is, the cells of the trophoblast start forming a finger-like projection on them, like this, like villi, okay, towards outside. Can you see this? It was not present earlier, but after implantation this develops. Okay, and everything surrounding it was the mother's tissue, right? This was mother's tissue here, right? So the mother's tissue also interdigitizes, so it forms structure like this. Can you see a connection happening between these two? Right? So if you zoom it even further, you will see it is a structure like this. So this is my left hand is from the embryo and my right hand is from the mother. So they both come and interdigitize. This is called interdigitization. The word digits is used for fingers, right? So this interdigitized region is called placenta, and it forms a disc-like structure throughout. It makes a disc. Okay, placental disc. So write down placenta is formed through interdigitization. Placenta is formed through interdigitization of the cells of trophoblast in the blastocyst, the cells of trophoblast in the blastocyst, and endometrium of the uterus. Okay, they interdigitize. Endometrium of the uterus. Next point, it forms a disc-like structure. It forms a disc-like structure that serves as the structural and functional, connection. Structural and functional connection between the mother and the developing fetus. Okay, between the mother and the developing fetus. Is that clear, everyone? Now,
Yes.
once the placenta is formed, now things are more easier. Now we don't need corpus luteum to sustain and make progesterone. This placenta starts producing progesterone. So for the next 9 months, the major source of progesterone, which will keep the endometrium intact, is placenta. Is it clear? Placenta and the fetus developing inside. Is it clear? So write down. Post implantation, placenta produces progesterone to maintain the endometrium. Okay. Is the progesterone story clear to you, and how pregnancy stays for 9 months is clear to you?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, now I'm giving you a quick homework here. this actually comes in the next chapter, which is reproductive health, but I'm giving you here to figure out not about the contraceptive drug, but have you heard that there are certain fruits that pregnant women are not allowed to eat, especially during the initial or the first trimester? Okay, you know any such fruit? You have any idea of such fruit?
Yeah.
Going to say papaya?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. So I want you to go back and do some brainstorming, use internet for some good reason, and figure out why. It's not just papaya, there are many such fruits. What is common and why it increases the chances of miscarriage or ending of the pregnancy if you have it in more amounts during the initial time. I'm giving you a hint. It has to do something with this progesterone balancing the endometrium theory. We need constant progesterone to maintain endometrium, right? For the 9 months. But okay, just go and figure out why certain fruits and vegetables, and what are those fruits and vegetables you can also find along the way, papaya being one, should not be consumed by a pregnant female, especially during first trimester. Okay, just as a curious homework. Will you do it, everyone? Aisha, Rabia?
Yeah.
So you have to say yes, because see, I can see Iram nodding the head, so I understand. Okay, she's responding. But for you, you have to speak if you're not turning on the cameras. Okay, just do it and you will find something interesting. Bring it back to me in the next class and we'll discuss. Okay. Now, placenta does not just secretes progesterone. Progesterone is one major thing that it secretes to maintain pregnancy. But you also have to now, to maintain pregnancy, you also need a lot of other hormones. So placenta starts producing a plethora of hormones and chemicals that will help in the development, protection, and maintenance of pregnancy. Okay, so any idea what are those? I think it must have been done. What all hormones do placenta secrete? This is another question that you should know. How many of you know about pregnancy test kits? You know that there's something called a pregnancy test kit, where a female, if she misses on her periodic menstrual cycle, she can be sure that if she's missing that because of a pregnancy or she's missing it just like because of stress or something else. So there is a strip on which the female has to put a drop of her urine, and it looks something like this. So there is this collection point for the urine, and this strip goes like this, and then there is a window inside that strip, and on that window, let me do a better job of drawing it. Sorry, I'm very bad at drawing things at times. It's like this, and this is the collection point, and then inside there is a window which shows there are two lines. So there is first line, which is called the control line. If you put a drop of urine here and one line appears, which means the kit is working properly and the female is not pregnant. Okay, but if a second line appears, this is confirmation of pregnancy. If no line appears, it doesn't mean that the female is not pregnant. It means that the kit is not functioning properly, because one line should appear. That's the control line, and that's what is the purpose of control in biology. Otherwise, you will just think, oh, there was no line on the pregnancy kit, and how a female is pregnant, because the kit was not functioning properly. So two lines sometimes gives you it's a short way to tell that you're pregnant. Now this second line, what are the testing in this kit? It's another neat question. What is tested in a pregnancy kit? And I'm sure these are important questions. They all must have been covered. You remember any hormone which is tested? What levels are this? This band is what? It's called HCG. HCG levels. What is HCG? H stands for human. This hormone is human chorionic gonadotropin. HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin, which is secreted by placenta. Okay, post fertilization, these hormones come in the female urine. Urine is a good source because urine, it's closer to the reproductive tract. Okay. And apart from this, one another major, okay, so remember these two for now, progesterone and HCG, because we are talking about successful pregnancy. So through HCG is the pregnancy hormone. Write it down. It's called the pregnancy hormone. In any female's body, HCG is only exclusively present and synthesized when she is pregnant. At no any other given time it is present. Okay, so a non-pregnant female or a male can never have HCG in their system. Is it clear? Okay, so that's why it's called the pregnancy hormone. Okay, I'll come back to placental hormones in the next class in detail, but before that, now there is 9 months of pregnancy. Okay, I'll also come to this whole pregnancy part, and we'll cover it in the next chapter, what happens at each step, first month, second month, third month, etc. But let's say the pregnancy completely is completed. Okay, now at the end of pregnancy, what do you think tells a female system that the baby is ready and now it is time for delivery? What is the first tissue that will know that the baby is complete and ready? The baby itself, the fetus itself, right? So fetus itself knows that it is ready. Second thing that knows that the fetus is ready is placenta. Yeah. So there is a reflex to eject the fetus that is started by the fetus and placenta, majorly by placenta. So placenta plus the fetus together at the end of 9 months start something called as fetal ejection reflex. And why it is a reflex? Because it cannot be controlled by the female. It has to be a reflex. Now, because of fetal ejection reflex, mild contractions begin of the uterus. Okay, and because of this mild contraction, there is this water breaking event. So female is now ready to give birth, but these mild contractions are not powerful enough to eject a baby out on its own. So this signal, apart from sending mild contraction, it goes to the brain. Inside the brain, specifically to the which part? pituitary gland. And from the pituitary gland is released, and you know which part of pituitary gland? Yes, yes, Iram? You're mute. You are mute, you're saying something?
No, sir.
Okay, so from pituitary gland, a hormone is released which is called oxytocin. And oxytocin and vasopressin, these are the only two hormones that are released from the posterior pituitary. FSH and LH was coming from anterior pituitary, remember that. But this oxytocin is coming from posterior pituitary. Again, class 11th, you have studied it. You know, chemical control and coordination. I think I only taught this, you know. Yes. So oxytocin. Now this oxytocin goes and act on uterus. So uterus has receptors on which this oxytocin goes and bind, and they are produced in bulk and bulk amount, and they start vigorous contractions. The contractions that cause so much of pain and are so vigorous that they just eject the baby out. And this vigorous contractions leads to birth of the fetus. Is that clear?
Duration of
Yes.
this.
Sorry?
Is there any duration of this pain?
Yes. So it's slightly delayed because you understand, no? So the female might be walking, you know, taking a bath, sleeping, eating, you know, when this fetal ejection reflex starts. So if the fetal ejection reflex does not give some time to the female before the oxytocin come in and start showing its effects, you understand it's going to be different. The woman might be driving or it might be in the car on the way to hospital. So there is some delay, but you cannot delay it, you know, beyond like 1 hour or something. So the moment water breaks, you have to rush to hospital because the female is now about to give birth. Okay. But fetal ejection reflex is not responsible solely and single-handedly for ejection. It is posterior pituitary gland's hormone called oxytocin, which is responsible for vigorous contraction of the uterus and the birth. And oxytocin also helps the female, as I told you, to undergo or withstand the pain that happens. Okay. Okay, so I think we are slightly out of time. We actually overstepped. Anyways, but I'll stop here, and in the next class, this chapter will be finished. And where it will finish, I will just merge it with reproductive health, the 4th chapter, and we will finish that too. Okay, in the same stride. Okay, is that okay, Aisha? So
Yeah.
Iram and Rabia can just leave if you have no other questions. I'll see you in the next class. Aisha, can you just stay back for a minute? I just need to discuss something with you. So on Wednesday, Aisha, are you okay joining half an hour earlier?
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll send the message to the team, and you will get a link half an hour early. So you join a little early, so where we can go together through chapter 3. So I want you to go and read chapter 3 on your own and come up with your doubts, because it has been completed in your school, so you won't find it very difficult, and we'll go through it. And then I just want to make sure that all three of you are at the same page, and we can continue doing that for a few more classes in the future. Okay, Aisha?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so see you in the next class. Bye bye. Take care.